This is video number 4 in the Ellie Aline bag pattern process. I'm going to be doing the interior construction on this video. So I've gotten both of my lining pieces. I've gotten my pocket for the zipper pocket, and I've drawn my box on my zipper pocket and got it pinned to the exterior. Now, I do my linings on my domestic machine, so I've got my Janome over here that I'm going to be using for this process, and unfortunately I can't move my camera over there, so you're not going to be able to see this process in action, but I'll bring it back and show you when I've completed it. So I'm going to go over to the machine and make a stitch line all the way around my box for my zipper. Okay, so I have stitched all the way around the box for my zipper, and now I'm going to use my seam ripper and make that opening for the zipper to fit in to the box. I get it started with my seam ripper and then finish it up with my scissors. Cut down this center line to about 1/2 inch from my corner, and then I'll make the V. Make sure you don't cut your stitches on your corners or you'll have a hole in your zipper area. So here's my hole, and now I'm going to step over to the ironing board, and I'm going to press this placket, this pocket placket, to the inside, to the inside of my lining, back on the back, all the way around. So I'll step over here and do that, and I'll be right back. I'll flip this around so you can see as I press that down. totally outgrown my sewing area, my sewing room, so things are really tight in here. Okay, so now I have this pressed to the back, as you can see, and I'm going to insert my zipper in that hole. Get you turned back around. I have placed double-sided tape on both edges of my zipper so that I'm going to remove that double-sided tape to expose the sticky part, and I'm going to center this in my zipper hole that I just made. So now I've got it centered in the hole, and I'm going to go over to my sewing machine and stitch around this box all the way around the edge. Okay, now I've got it stitched all the way around so that it is actually attached to the lining piece, and I'm going to take that bottom and move it up here to the top. That's gonna, and then I'm going to stitch all the way around these three sides, and that's going to close my zipper pocket. So I'll be right back. Okay, so now I have stitched all the way around my zipper pocket to close it. And there we have the zipper pocket in. Now I put my label for my business label right above this pocket, so I'm going to go ahead and stitch that in. Okay, I have my business labels stitched in, and I'm going to take this piece now to the iron and press my pocket down. Okay, this side is complete. I'm going to lay it aside and get my pocket and my other lining piece. And now I'm going to go to the sewing machine. I'll make a stitch line all the way across and down to about here, leave an opening, then start again all the way over here and back down to get my pocket ready to turn. Okay, so I've got that stitched. I've left a hole in here to turn my pocket. I'm going to trim the corners to decrease the thickness in the corners. And I'm going to turn this pocket out. Use a smaller, more fine point stiletto to reach in and pull these corners out. Okay, now I'm going to take this over to the iron, and I'm going to press this on all three sides and press this this seam allowance to the inside where I'm going to, and it'll be ready then to attach it to the lining. Okay, got that pressed. Let's see, I need to fix that a little bit. Okay. Now I'm going to take this back over to the sewing machine and I'm going to make a top stitch line right along the edge of the folded part of this pocket. And then I am going to attach it to my lining piece. Okay. Now you want to center your pocket onto your lining piece. I think my instructions say 4 inches down. That's personal preference. You can put it wherever you want, and that's the same way with your zipper pocket also. I think I'm going to go just about 3.5 inches down and center it. And when I get this stitched on to my pocket, or to my lining, I'm going to divide that pocket in half then with another stitch line that will give it a divider and make 2 slip pockets. Okay, I'll go stitch that on. Okay, I apologize for the noisy dog. We've got a worker here doing some remodeling for us, and evidently he has just arrived, and she's going to let me know about that. So, I apologize. Now, I'm going to measure this, find my center point for my pocket, make my mark, so I know where to divide that. And go back to the sewing machine and make that division stitch. Okay, I now have 2 pockets. I'm going to put rivets in each corner as well as in the middle. Okay. I'm going to use medium rivets on this. Rivets just kind of help keep the pressure off of your seams so that that pocket doesn't tear out when it's used over time. And it gives you a little more bling on the inside of your bag. Rivet press over here. Okay. Here we are. We've got our pocket all completed. Trim off a little thread, a couple of threads here. Okay, so that takes care of both the zipper pocket installation and the slip pockets. Now I'm going to lay that aside and get the bottom and the side gussets. Now in attaching the side gussets and the lining, I'm going to use a 1/2 inch stitch line, seam allowance. I like a tighter lining. I don't have a overlay to match it to, so I can take a little bit tighter stitch, seam allowance on these side gussets. So I'm going to do that, then I will flatten those seams and do my top stitching on the other side, just like we did with the original installation of the gusset on the exterior. we've got the gusset bottom and sides attached. The next thing we're going to do is locate the center point and mark it on the gusset, on the bottom and the bottom on the lining. And just as we did with the exterior gusset, we're going to begin to attach that to the lining piece, to the lining front first and then the back. We don't have any seams to match up on the gusset overlays and the gusset, so we're just need to go on the bottom. I usually start with the bottom in the middle, and then I go to the top edge and begin my attachment there. And again, you can make slits if you need to with your gusset corner so that it eases into that corner installation. Okay, so I've got that clipped on, and what I'm going to do with this seam allowance is I'm going to begin my top with a 3/8 inch seam allowance, and then about 1 inch down I'm going to increase that to a 1/2 inch, and then I'm going to make my 1/2 inch seam allowance all the way around till I get to the other side 1 inch from the top, and then I will taper that in and make it end with a 3-inch seam allowance. That just gives your lining a little bit tighter fit, and I like for my lining to fit tightly. So I'm going to increase that. I'll take it over to the machine now and do that, and then I'll be back with you in just a minute. I've got this stitched all the way around. Now I'm going to trim my seam allowance down to about 1/4 of an inch, just to take some of the thickness out of that lining. And before I do the other side and attach the gusset to the other lining piece, I'm going to stop and do my key fob. So I've already pressed this in half. I have it down to 1/2 inch, and I'm just going to do a line of top stitching all the way around to join it, and then I will put the swivel clasp on. Okay, and now let's see, get my clasp. I'm going to put my clasp on the end that has this turned in edge, and I'm going to use one rivet to rivet this together. Get that set so that it holds. Okay, got that finished, and you want to get that done so, because when you put this other side on the gusset, you're going to stitch this into that side seam. So you want to have your key fob done so that you can do that before you attach it. It's harder to make a slit and insert it and restitch it if you leave it out. So I try to do that before I stitch that gusset piece. So let me run a line of stitching right up there to kind of hold it in place. Okay, so now we've got that attached. I'll trim that excess out of the seam. And we can now attach this gusset to the lining, just like we did with the other one. Beginning at the bottom with your clipping and all the way around, and you want to have the same seam allowance on this side, so you're going to begin it at 3/8 of an inch and increase it to 1/2 if that's what you want. If If you want to keep it at 3/8 of an inch, that's fine as well. You want to make sure that your key fob is out of the way whenever you stitch this together so that you don't get it stitched into your seam and then not be able to use your key fob. So just beware that that's there and kind of watch whenever you stitch that side so you know that you've got it out of the way. And again, I'm going to make some little slits in the corner of my gusset. So that that will ease into the corner and fit correctly. I snipped the wrong side there, so let's do it correctly. Snip the corner instead of the gusset. Okay, it's a little bit easier on the lining. It goes together a little bit better. You're not trying to force it to match up another stitch line. Okay, so I'll go over to the machine and do this again. Let's get this marked so I know where I am with my seam allowance. Okie dokie. Okay, now I'm going to trim this side down, this seam allowance down, take some of the thickness out of it. Okay, so now I've got that completed. There's the key fob in here. And the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to go over to the ironing board and I'm going to press these side seams open as much as I can, as far down as I can. Okay, now the next thing I'm going to do is to take a measuring tape and I'm going to mark a line or just a little dash mark down 1 inch so that I know where to turn my top edge down so that it'll fit into my lining. I fold it down 1/2 inch. So if I fold it down to this little mark that I've made, then I know I've got it down evenly on at 1/2 inch. Okay, I'll fold that down and give it a good press. You may have just a little bit of a tuck right there at the gusset seam. That's okay. Just go ahead and press it as to make that corner as nicely as possible. Okay. Got that pressed down. Now I'm going to put a row of double-sided tape all around that edge. That'll help stick that down to the lining, and then whenever I'm ready to install my zipper in the exterior and join the lining to the exterior, that will help to stick it to the zipper so it holds it securely in place while I do that stitching. If I stick it right on the edge, it will adhere it to both the lining and the folded down edge. That's where I want to get it to where it holds it in place. Okay, there we have the lining all stitched together and ready to insert into the exterior when we join the two with the top zipper. So that's all for this video session, and the next one will be when we do that, we will put the zipper into the exterior and then insert the lining, and that is going to be on page 12 at step number 21. So I will see you again for the next video.